Welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone. At this point in time, you're looking around thinking, I need to take a course to advance myself in my career. Now, you're probably shopping around, you're probably looking at different courses and you're thinking, well, how can an MBA actually influence my career? What is the right MBA for me? Now, this is a problem that we're looking to address today by highlighting our wonderful University of Liverpool online MBA program. We have a fantastic agenda for today. My name is Joseph O'Brien. I'm an MBA student. I'm currently in my consultancy phase, which is the last phase of the program. It covers 6 to 9 months where we do a big piece of work, so we'll discuss that later. We're going to introduce you to our wonderful speaker today. We're going to answer the question, why this MBA program as opposed to another one? Who is our MBA program suitable for? What do we expect you to gain from our program? And we're going to look at some examples and an open Q&A. So what that means is there's a question and answer session in about 30 to 40 minutes time where you'll get to fire your questions away to our panelists. Now, please keep your ears open. It's a very big decision to go and take an MBA. It takes over 2 years. It's a financial commitment. It's a time commitment. So we definitely want to answer your questions as thoroughly as possible. So please enter those in, and we'll look to get to those in about half an hour. We'll put those to our guests. So without any further ado, let's meet our wonderful guest for today, Miss Lisa Day. Welcome, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, very good. Nice to see you, Joseph, and hello to everybody else out there as well. Yeah, I'm a Director of Studies for the online MBA, so talking today.
Lovely. And where are you right now?
I'm in Liverpool, in what's called the Pod, a very, very tiny office, if you can see.
Exactly. It's almost like a podcast we're doing, so it's very appropriate that you're in the pod delivering today's webinar. So the Director of Studies, and I'm, as I said, the moderator. So you're the Director of Studies on the program, and I'm studying on your program. So I'm really looking forward to discussing this. I'm always excited to share developments with the students in my class as well. I'll be going back and speaking to them, and also speaking to our prospective students today and giving them a bit more information. So you're going to help us with that today. Now, we're talking about how an MBA can influence your career. Lisa, you've had some experience with distance learning as well, and you're currently wrapping up your PhD, which is something that influences you currently. Can you just outline your PhD topic and why it's relevant for what you're doing at the moment?
Yes, yeah, I've studied the PhD part-time and I finished in March this year. So the topic is grandly titled Strategic Change and Strategy as Practice, a Study of Sense-Making and Identity. But lovely. What it actually means is I spent 2 years observing an internal merger between an architecture faculty and an art and design faculty in university. And what was interesting was that the architecture faculty was very, very highly regarded, and doing terribly well. And the art and design faculty was much, much bigger, but was very much in fear that they were going to be taken over or closed down. So it wasn't on paper a very natural coming together. So it was really interesting to kind of have this ringside seat of seeing how they started to work together, how they kind of developed the shared identity. So this idea of a sense of who they were, that was something that both sides could actually feel good about and aspire to. So, it kind of informs the teaching that I do and the work on the MBA, because it's all about strategy, strategic change. It's very much the subjects that we cover on the MBA, and also, even having done the research for so long, you can still hear them. You can hear things that they said when you listen to them. So the way they don't use the word strategy as much, they often talk about narratives, which I thought was lovely. So they talk about the story that they tell, the story that we tell about ourselves, to ourselves, but to other people as well. So I think that's much less dry than a sort of what's our strategic differentiators, what are our sources of competitive advantage, that kind of thing.
Well, that's interesting as well. And we had a webinar a few weeks ago that our audience could check out online called 10 Key Skills for the Future Workforce in light of, machine learning and AI. And one of those skills was storytelling ability. And, within our classrooms, which we'll discuss later, we have a collaborative learning model where we kind of share our stories, but they're informed by, journal articles, academic theory, and what's going on out there as well. You mentioned strategy and you mentioned sense making, and for an MBA student, these are all big words from our course. And one of our modules is the organization in strategic context, where we get to actually dive into sense making, a concept brought by a theorist called Paul Weick, and it's all about how you frame issues and things at work, and how you align people at work to look through things with the same frame in mind, even if people don't necessarily agree. So it's a really interesting topic as well, and a kind of yin and yang bringing together there in terms of those two different and disparate schools that you kind of brought together. So a really cool thing that I don't think you could do unless you had some kind of theoretical framework to base that on. So thank you for that. Now let's look at our first real question of the day. Why this MBA program, Lisa? Can you outline some of the attributes of the University of Liverpool Online and our MBA?
That's a great question. I say, why this as opposed to anything else? And I think the first thing I'd say is the fact that this is the University of Liverpool. So, you know, the university is a unique part of a very unique city. It's got a long heritage, culture based around the docks and the football teams and the Beatles. So, you know, it's some time off maybe for people who are thinking about the course, but if you're coming from a long way away, I would definitely save up your pennies, and when you graduate, come and visit us, because, you know, it's a glorious city. Come and spend a few days here. People feel very connected to the city very quickly, whether you've studied online or visited or whatever. And the university itself, you know, is part of the city and part of the heritage. So it dates back to 1881. It's a member of the prestigious Russell Group. So there's 24 universities in the UK that are research-intensive, world-class universities. And we say world-class, you know, our research is ranked in the top 1% of universities worldwide. But I think the thing about Liverpool is, although we have all this heritage, we're also very dynamic. So we have XJTLU, which is a joint venture university in China, very much at the forefront there. And then we have this 15-year history of offering courses online, including the MBA. So I think what makes our MBA unique is, you know, it has all the prestige, but it also has a 15-year history. And you think, well, why is that important? Well, it's because, you know, the program's been designed from day one, delivered online, you know, so we have all the accreditations and things like that, but the whole learning model is geared towards collaborative learning. And, you know, we've had 15 years to learn what really works well, yeah, and what doesn't, and to improve. So it's gone through a number of major iterations, you know, and it just keeps getting better. It's great. So, you know, I think, why this MBA? As a strategist, you know, in strategy terms, we're not someone who's late to market. We're not jumping on anybody else's bandwagon. You know, we're tried and tested and true.
Thank you. I mean, that's the explanation I'm always looking for. Why, you know, we're quite ruthless as MBA students. You know, there's a bit of hubris there as well. You know, why should I put my money down and come to you guys? You know, it's a valid question, actually. And the track record of delivery is important. The fact that we run a robust support service of actual people you can speak to, because we've been in the game for that long, is also important, because you can feel a bit isolated studying online, and we remove that isolation through having an extremely engaging course with a lot of support members. You know, the other thing is the size. We've been doing it for 15 years, so we have a massive alumni group of people studying online. And our alumni, once our students finish their online program, they join the big alumni group of the university itself, which is over 200,000 people strong. And I think, you know, when people start an MBA program, Lisa, I'm sure you'll agree, connections and networking is one of the prime reasons why people take a course. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, very much so. I think with an MBA, it's not what you know or who you know. It's what you know and who you know. You need you know, in a modern world, you need both. You need the knowledge you get from an MBA, but you also need the connections and the networks. Really important.
So let's have a look at our students. Who is our MBA suitable for, Lisa? What kind of, you know, what's the caliber of our student body, and where do they come from?
Well, we talked just now about what makes it sort of special, and and I think the student body of the, you know, the Liverpool Online MBA is another great example, because we have students from all over the world. So Canada, the UK, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, China, to name just a few. So it's a really interesting mix of people and ideas. And usually the people we try to have a bachelor's degree, but not always. We look at each case on its own merits. The average age is around mid-30s, 38, but it's quite a wide spread. So if you're listening, you're very welcome, if you're younger or older than that. But I think what people have in common is they all have management experience, at least 3 years, and often more than that. So, you know, the average age of around mid-30s, 38 kind of gives you a sense that a lot of students are kind of mid-stage in their careers, and they're often hoping to develop. And we find the course is suitable for developing in, there's about 3 different ways, you know, that are typical. So typically, you know, if you're looking, you know, in mid-career to go to a more senior role, for example, so then you might want to stay in the same broad field, but you want to develop those senior skills and those strategic skills, perhaps. But then you also get people who perhaps have gone into a specialism. They might have been working in there 5, 10, 15 years. And I'm not judging, but in my past history, I found there's accountants, engineers on courses who often, they're just looking to move into a more general role, and they're looking for that general skill. So it's very useful for that. But I think the other area is that kind of someone looking to make a really significant transformative change. So with me, it was moving from the practitioner world into academia. That was a massive change, and that was facilitated by the MBA. Somebody else might want to start their own business, a social enterprise. So it's about the skills, but also the confidence to go and do something completely different. I think is really what it's suitable for.
I completely agree. I mean, the GMAT study conducted last year, so there was 3 main motivators for the MBA, which you've touched upon there as well. It's advancing within your own career and own organization. The second is to switch careers or switch fields, like the example of the accountant that you gave us. And the other is to start your own business or enterprise. And the course is valid in all 3 ways. It can teach you skills across all of those fields, entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship within your organization as well. Let's look at some of those learning outcomes. We've designed the course very divisively in order to have specific learning outcomes for our students that are relevant in today's market. So, what are the current learning outcomes, Lisa, for the program?
Okay, so the kind of overall aim of the program is really to provide a comprehensive and high-level education to managers who are part-way through their careers. So this idea of a mid-career, a working professional, and we achieve it through our core modules, which all include this collaborative learning that we'll talk about, and our personal development plan, and also through the final research or consultancy project. So all the modules on the program are M-level, or what we call master's level modules. And what that means is we're not just asking students to rote learn information, but we want them to be able to synthesize, analyze, critically reflect, evaluate, and really to demonstrate their ability to apply theory and ideas to practical real-world situations, which is, just what you find in the workplace. So, a really key objective in terms of assisting students, making sure that the MBA is a really constructive part, of their career development and their progress.
Now, can you just describe the collaborative learning model and how it may differ from the traditional campus model we're used to, and kind of describe this, the way we assess people based on this slide here with our percentages?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if I just outline briefly how the program works. So every student on the MBA takes 8 modules and a final dissertation. And of the 8 modules, 5 of them are core modules, so everyone takes those. And then 3 are what we call elective modules. So you have a choice there, and it's usually 3 as a choice of 12. And all the modules last for 8 weeks. Except for the very first one, which is being a leader, and that lasts for 12 weeks. And what we do in those first 4 weeks is we make sure that the students are familiar with the learning model before their work starts to count towards their final grade. So that's quite important. So within each of those 8 modules, there's a similar overall pattern of assessment. So 50% of the marks are for collaborative learning, 30% are for individual project work, and 20% for the personal development plan work. So the collaborative learning is based on discussion board work. So each week there's a discussion topic and some suggested reading, and students are given about 3 days to go through the reading and post what we call their initial response. And then for the next 4 days, students log on and they read the other student entries, and they add to what's been said, and they offer alternative ideas. And these initial posts and contributions are assessed. So, for example, we assess them based on the quality of the ideas, the breadth and the depth of the reading, but also where students are able to draw on their experiences and bring in real-world examples. Perhaps from something happening, right now in their own country, their own industry, and that's really important, because what you get is this just wonderful mix of academic knowledge combined with this up-to-the-minute experiences from practicing managers, in their local contextual knowledge. So, I'm often thinking when I look at MBAs, there's people like Henry Mintzberg, who's a management guru, and he says, it's very difficult to learn about management in a classroom. It's easier to learn about management through experience, through doing it. But in the collaborative learning module, within that space, we get the academic knowledge, but you're also learning from what people are experiencing right now in their workplaces, all over the world. And because you're studying online and you work, you're working perhaps and you're doing this part-time, you can take that learning right back into your own workplace, potentially the very next day. So it's a very powerful learning model.
Well, exactly. I mean, I have people in my class from all different industries and sectors. I remember when I was doing my marketing module, I had a lady who was very high up, marketing director for Taco Bell in Canada. And the amount of stuff I learned of that woman was immense because she was sharing 15, 20 years of experience at the top of the game, for her. So it was amazing to understand some of the differentiators between what I did and what she did, and then to look at how people are doing things in emerging markets, or then to say, oh, not the private sector, let's look at the public sector, because all of those characters are available within the classroom. We talk about MOOCs. Everyone knows what a MOOC is, a massive open online course, but not many people know what a SPOC is, which is a small private online classroom. And that's what we have, SPOC. So it's little classrooms where you have a group of people around you who are basically consultants and can help you solve your work-based problems through the application of theory. Now, beyond that, we actually look at personal development. Lisa, how important is the personal development plan, and why do we grade it?
The personal development, it's a really core part of the program. It runs through every module of the 8 core modules that I mentioned, and it accounts for 20% of the assessment. And what it does is it gives students an opportunity to really consolidate their learning and link it to their work today and to their career plans. So it's an ongoing process of reflection and action planning that ensures that you're thinking about where you want the MBA to take you and acquiring the skills you need along the way. Because what we don't want is students to get to the end of the program and think, well, what was all that about? Did I learn anything useful? And do I now know what I want to do next? And have I got the skills to get there? So it can be very short-term planning. I mean, what we were just talking about, it can be reflecting on what you did in the module or what you learned this week and what you're going to take back into the workplace tomorrow. It could be midterm. You could be starting to think about the sort of research project you might do. Or it could be longer term thinking about your career or your change of direction. And we also use that personal development plan time and space to develop professional skills. So things like reflection, communication, planning, maybe negotiation skills, all those kind of things. And you're right, we do assess it. It's important, that it encourages it to be taken seriously and engaged with, but also that sense that, we're not assessing whether you have a goal that we approve of, or whether whether we think that your career plan is something that we would buy into. But we can assess things like whether you're setting smart objectives. So whether you're setting goals that are specific and measurable and realistic and things like that.
And we wrap up our program. We have these 8 modules. 5 of them are core modules where we look at finance, leadership, strategy, marketing, and innovation. And then we have a choice of modules. There's quite a few, and then we choose 3 of them. After that, Lisa, what do we do when we finish our 8 modules?
And we go on to our research or our consultancy projects. Yes.
Okay. Can you tell our audience today a bit about what the final research or the consultancy project is and the difference between the two?
Yeah, I mean it's really it's a really important part of the course. Not least of it, it's a third of the marks. And so whether you choose to do work with a company and do a company-based consultancy project working closely with a company, or whether you develop your own research-based project, in many ways that the role that it serves is very much the same, because what you get in this final project is the bringing together of many of the skills that you've learned on the rest of the course. So it's different because it's a much more self-directed task. So you have a supervisor, but it's not taught in the same way of the other modules. So you have more responsibility for doing a lot more yourself, such as developing a research question or identifying literature. So for me, it's like taking the armbands off and seeing if you can swim. Yeah, but you've got this guide on the side. You've got a support. You've got someone who can help you. But I think it's also really important to think about what it is you're going to study and what and particularly what you want to get out of the project, because if we've talked about these 3 reasons for doing the program, about developing into a senior role or switching careers or doing something completely different, so if you want to develop into a more senior level role, then you might want to do a strategy project within your own organisation.
Exactly.
If you want to change industries, then you might want to do something on that industry, or whatever area it is you want to go to. So it gives you that opportunity. And your project titles are also included in your higher education achievement report. So it's there, or you could put it on your CV, and you could say, I did a project in this topic. So I think it's an important form of learning. So it enables you to develop in a direction you want to go in, but also it's a form of signalling in that you can let people know that this is something you've developed this expertise in, and this is something that you're good at now. Yeah.
Was lovely. So, I mean, our students will make that choice, as Lisa says at the end, and think about, how am I going to get the most out of this program? What did I enjoy in those 8 modules? What's relevant for my work? They'll choose a dissertation, which is a written piece of work only, which explores a gap in the literature and gets specific as to their area or their problem or their sector. Or they can do a consultancy. There's some similarities there where you're still looking at an issue or problem pertaining to an organization, but in this way, you're consulting with people within your organization, and you're then presenting a recommendation back to that organization at the end of your consultancy program. And that's the option that I've taken. I'm looking at social media and how it influences consumer behavior when it comes to making high involvement purchase decisions. Deciding to do an MBA is something I would consider a high involvement purchase decision. You have to make a financial commitment, you have to make a time commitment, you have to tell your family about that. So what I'll be doing is I'll be looking at that and looking at how we at the University of Liverpool Online communicate our MBA through our social media channels, and how we could do that better and more effectively in order to help our prospective students make informed choices. So it relates directly back to what I'm doing here. Would you say that's in line with what we're expecting in terms of what we expect students to do at the end?
Well, absolutely, but the most important thing is it's something that you're interested in, that you can see how it's going to take your career forward. Like I say, very much, if you think about the core modules, we're sort of saying these subjects are important because this is where I want to focus, this is what floats my boat, this is what I'm interested in, and where I want to develop my expertise. So it's very, and it's a third of the course. So, it's not to be underestimated. It gives you a lot of scope for developing an area you really want to.
Lovely. Now, one of my favorite questions is how do you maintain relevance? I'm very hungry for relevance because I'm always reading, always looking at websites, and always want to know that whoever's designing the course that I'm on is making sure that it is as relevant as humanly possible. How does the program maintain its relevance, Lisa?
That is a really good question, and the answer is there is no one right answer, is there? Because you have to do it in many different ways. And I think one of the ways is through the students. So at the end of every module, we'll get feedback, and students will tell us, what they like, dislike, what they'd like more of. And then we also, we have surveys. So the last set of changes, we had about 160 students who'd given us insights into things that they were interested in doing in future. Another area we talk to is academics. So we talk to people here at Liverpool, see what's current in their research areas, draw on their expertise. And then we look at the market analysis that's out there. So we're very interested in what employers are looking for from MBA graduates. There's lots of research on that, and what students are looking for from the MBA. If I'm honest, I would say we do look at other university websites. Why wouldn't we? If they look like they've got something interesting, we might pick up on that, and assure they would the same as with ours. But in honesty, we talk very openly with other universities. So a couple of months ago, I was at a conference of online MBA program directors, and we had the people presenting about what employers are looking for in the market analysis, and we'll all discuss that. So, it's quite an open discussion about where things are going and what we might do. And then all that feeds back. So, I meet with my core team fortnightly, and that's always part of the agenda. We'll always look at how are things developing, not just the strategy, but the implementation. Are we doing what we said we'd do? How's it going? When's it going to be coming on stream? So I say that it's constant. Yeah.
Nice. Also, what we miss here is the way the program is designed. It's designed to be relevant through its collaborative learning model. So the whole point of the collaborative learning model is you're constantly sharing your relevant and up-to-date experiences. So that model is infused in the program, and it forces you to share what's happening now. It forces you to go and look at what's happening in the landscape now. And so you're constantly searching for relevant current examples. My module that we took on global leadership was right at the point where they're having the US elections, and we were talking about the role of globalization. It couldn't have been more relevant, and what we were doing is we were looking and drawing off all of the media that was happening at that time about the negative and positive effects of globalization, and we were discussing that directly in the classroom, and we all had very different opinions on how effective globalization was, who were the beneficiaries, and who wasn't. The program's it's been around for 15 years. It's gonna be around for a lot longer after that. Maybe like this guy, it'll all be up in augmented reality, or we'll just put our headset on and we'll sit in that class, we'll be on the campus, and then we'll kind of put our hands out and grab virtual books off the shelf. We're not there yet. But what is the future, do you think, of our program, Lisa?
Yeah, it's a good question. I say I like the look of the glasses there. If you think Facebook's addictive, I hate to think how addictive some of this stuff that's coming is going to be. But I think the MBA is still the flagship program of any business school, and I think that will continue to be the case. So I think MBAs are still going to be here to stay. There's a growth globally in opting to take an online MBA, and that's really helping to make it less of an unusual choice. I think I've said that. So 10 years ago, I think people really did say, why study online? And now it's a case of, why not? There are so many benefits, such as the flexibility, and costs, not just in terms of time, but things that saved in travel costs and things like that. So we've talked already about the fact that Liverpool Online MBA has been continually updated with new features and innovations over 15 years, and that's not going to stop tomorrow. That's going to continue. So we're looking at different accrediting bodies. We're looking constantly at things like rankings and league tables, as everybody does. We're listening to students, and we're looking at market trends, and we're going to look to include some areas that we know people are interested in from talking to students. So more around, we're looking at electives and more information around big data and technology trends, more around digital marketing, social media, and you're interested in, I'm sure there's many other students who are looking at the research project side as well. As well as just making sure constantly that the modules are kept up to date and relevant or topical. Though, as you say, that comes partly from the academic knowledge, but it all comes from this living learning where people are bringing ideas into the classroom all the time.
Exactly. Before when I started, a few years ago, people were asking, is online learning recognized in this country? What's the reputation? I no longer really get questions about the reputation of online learning. I really feel, especially having done the course myself, having a wife, having a one-year-old child, having a job, I think it's a badge of honor for our students to go through a degree online, to juggle their jobs, their families. It's an older demographic. This is not like a campus-based university. Your instructors are learning off you sometimes as much as you're learning off them. It's very, very different in that way. We're asking, why this MBA? And I'll tell you why this MBA. We've been around for longer. We have a larger support system than anyone else. Our online students are spread across a wider range of countries than I've certainly seen at other academic institutions. And we're constantly discussing things in a collaborative learning model all the time, sharing our experience, and we're doing that whilst juggling our jobs, our families, and whilst all having jobs. I mean, on campus, sometimes the MBA qualification is a year or two's experience. People in their early 20s who haven't got much experience in the world of work, and they're discussing, the strategic organization. When we moved to the online program, I have CEOs in my class, vice presidents, executive directors. So it's a very different type of course, and I think that's something that's important to emphasize. And Lisa would like to finish really by asking you how your MBA program helped you in your career in light of what we've been discussing.
Yes, I was going to say, I was thinking about this question about because it was 99, 2000, but there's a saying, you don't know what you don't know, and I think I lacked confidence in some ways in my management abilities because I just didn't know how much of the whole subject area I knew and how much I didn't, and you're always a bit cautious about showing your ignorance. So I think after doing an MBA, I had a much better knowledge about the whole spectrum of managements, you know, ideas about management of change or encouraging
Hmm.
innovation or developing good marketing plans, things like that, and also skills around different activities and discussions and writing and research. But interesting, one of the main things I found was if I was in a meeting and I didn't understand something, I found after the MBA I had the courage to say, what does this mean? Because I've not heard of it before, because I knew if it was something everybody knew about, we'd have covered it, we'd have done it in the MBA. So what I found when I did that was people would come up to me and say, I'm so glad you asked, because I hadn't a clue what it was either. But it's being able, isn't it funny, so that knowing and learning is about sometimes being able to say, I don't know, could you tell me? Because then
Yes.
you learn something, rather than this fear of being caught out or not, or exposing yourself. But then from the more, going back to what we said about those 3 reasons for doing the MBA, I mean, I originally did it for a more senior management role, and that's what happened.
Hmm.
So I initially got the big salary bump we're all looking for. I got a big salary bump and I got a more senior role. But then when I've been doing the MBA, I'd really been thinking about, a PhD or the academia thing looked really exciting. So about 3 or 4 years later, I then did the transformational thing. So I then did the move into academia, and I couldn't have done that without the MBA. And then I've gone on and done a PhD. So, I enjoyed learning so much, I've never stopped, and I never will.
As they say about education, the roots of education are bitter, but the fruits are sweet. So there's a lot of hard work involved, but you certainly get there in the end. Now we have an opportunity to ask some questions, and we've had a few questions flying in, Lisa, that I'd like to ask you today. So there's one. Are there any exams on the course? Very simple question.
No.
No exams.
No, it's all based on online coursework, yeah.
Okay, lovely. Are any research projects actually published in journals? It says scientific journals, but could be any journal.
I, I, I wish I could cite you examples. As I said, I've only started in October, but it's a good one. I must get some examples. I know
There
I know
are.
there is the opportunity. There you go, Joseph, you know better than I do. You tell me.
There are. So when you're on the course, you're really encouraged to read peer-reviewed journal articles, which means they've been kind of looked and checked by people, in academia. If you do write a stunning piece of work, a really well-informed A-grade dissertation and piece of work that you've worked on with a dissertation advisor, and it is worthy of publication, then of course you will be encouraged, and we will try to enable you to publish that. If you get to that level and that point, then we really are so proud of you and so proud of our students that have got to that level. And there are a number of students whose work is published as well. So thank you for that question. It's a really cool question. How much time do I need to invest per week? On average, Lisa, what do you say to students in terms of how much time they need a week to do this course?
It does vary. I was going to say around 12 hours, something like that. But again, Joseph, what have you found? I mean, it's peaks and troughs. The nice thing about the program is because there's a consistent way that we do the assessments and the workload, you do get a rhythm, don't you? So you know in week 3 or week 5 when you're going to be busy and when you're not. So it probably isn't a typical amount per week. There are peaks and troughs, but indicatively. But what have you
Well,
found?
Well, I mean, as you say, basically our modules are about 8 weeks. Towards week 5 or 6 or 7, you're finishing your module projects, which is a longer piece of work for that specific module. In the first few weeks, yes, for me, it's 10 to 15 hours or so. Towards the back end, the last 4 weeks, then that goes up a bit as I have to write more. And research more, and so that would move to about 20 hours a week or so. Now, if you're not native English to begin with, you're probably going to take a bit longer to do that. We have a wonderful writing center, which is a facility for all of our students that they can hand in academic work and they can get that back, not from an expert in that particular industry or subject, but an expert in how to formulate arguments and to write academically at master's level. So we do offer that support for people, but Lisa, I would say 15 to 25, depending on depending on the week, depending on the person, and your level of English as well. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. What kind of skills am I going to learn in the leadership module? Nice. What do we learn what are we trying to teach in terms of learning outcomes for leadership?
I think Really, I mean, we'll learn around different ideas around leadership. So we'll learn about theories of leadership, but it's also an opportunity to kind of review and think about your own leadership style as well.
Mm,
So sometimes that means, they say nothing but practice is a good theory. So just when we learn about different learning styles, then you get a sense to think about which one is you, and also not just which one, but to recognise that there's more than one. So quite
yes.
often you may discover that there's other ones you could adopt. So you might have had a very directive style that might work very well for you. However, there's still certain situations when a different style would adopt. So I think it's that awareness of the different styles of leadership that are out there, but also that then self-reflection in terms of what's my style and what else might it be? Where might I want to take it?
No, I love that module. It's a really great module. Are you a transactional leader? I'll give you this if you give me that. Are you a servant leader where you're servant to your followers? Are you a shared leader where you share leadership across a group? Are you path goal orientated, or are you the holy grail that we all end up wanting to be after we take that module, a transformational leader where we're able to bring change to our organization? I kind of fell a bit short of that, and I tried to say I'd like to be a blended leader where I'm able to kind of switch hats depending on the situation and provide a different leadership style depending on the outcome that we're looking for in the business. Maybe a bit of a cop out there, but we try as we might. So let's have a look at some more of those questions. Lots of people have MBAs. How does this MBA position me better? Great question.
Well, it gets you to, I think, from my own experience, I mean, I perhaps go back to the example when I got my MBA, yeah. So I went for a job interview, and they actually asked me to do an analysis of Amazon and a case study analysis. So
Nice.
when I got the job, I said, well, surely if you hadn't got an MBA, this would have been very difficult to do. And they said, yes, exactly. So the person
Yes.
who was actually recruiting she'd got an MBA. She wasn't just looking for someone who had an MBA. She was looking for someone who actually had the skills. So you had to demonstrate that it wasn't enough to get the piece of paper. You had to, demonstrate that you'd acquired those skills. And then there's also, the reputation and caliber of the MBA, which we've talked about, the value of doing the MBA through Liverpool. But there are a number of MBAs out there. I think an MBA still does differentiate you. There aren't that many people who've actually got them and can then demonstrate the skills and have one from a good quality university with a good reputation as well. So I think it won't promise you a job. Again, going back to what we said earlier, it's not what you know, and it's who you know, and it's the network of contacts you build as well. So it's how and using your dissertation, you have to be strategic with these things. I remember someone on course on saying, I've got this now, but they haven't promoted me. Well, no, they won't. So if you've maybe done your dissertation in an area that might have lent itself towards promotion, if you've thought about not only where you want your career to go, but what your managers are looking for.
Precisely.
So I think you have to be smart with these things. It's not a piece of paper that will immediately just guarantee you a different job.
Yeah, it provides you the opportunity to show demonstrable problem solving. That's what it does. So you come out with a piece of paper, sure, like you're meant to, but how did studying for that piece of paper help you unlock and help and assist your colleagues in making work a better place? And aiming for your business outcomes and using the theory from the course to get to your business outcomes. And yes, as Lisa said, it's not a guaranteed ticket. You take this degree and then your employer pays you an extra 20 grand a year. But that's what they say the average is for a graduate. But that average is for people who know how to position themselves as well as people who don't.
But you also, it's because you are going to be a more valuable member of an organisation because of this knowledge and skills you've acquired, and therefore you can earn a higher salary. You don't just get one because you've got an MBA.
Exactly. Do I go to graduation when I'm done? Very simple.
Yes, we look forward to seeing you in Liverpool. And you're sat next to and with the on-campus students, and there's always a special event as well for students who've studied online, and you'll probably see Joseph there as well. He's normally there, and if you come and find him, then you might get yourself on Twitter. Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
that's true. You might get borrowed for a bit of your time to ask about how you enjoyed the course as well. So we'll be there in July, I believe, is our next graduation. We have two graduations a year, July and December. All of our students can attend on graduation. They attend graduation just like the students on campus. When you stand there in your robe, I cannot tell the difference between an online student or a campus-based student whatsoever. Except maybe they're a bit older and a bit more worldly because they've been. Yeah, and louder. Maybe we're a bit louder as well, a bit louder and prouder because we're coming from all over the world. So thank you very much. I've got an interesting question. I feel very strongly about the answer to this, as I'm sure you do, but it is an interesting question, much the same. What do I gain from having students from all over the world? And am I not just better off studying with like-minded people? We can look at some of those courses, those big American Ivy League courses where we have like-minded people studying at these elite business schools. What do you think about that question, Lisa?
Well, I think it's all about context. And again, it's what we're
Mm.
saying when we're saying about the leadership module, about appreciating that there is more than one way of doing things. So there's
Mm.
more than one way to lead, and there's more than one way to solve problems. So I think what you get from the global context is really interesting examples that you'd never have thought of because people are coming from just such different experiences.
Mm.
So it makes you think, if you talk about thinking outside the box, I've taught creativity. Thinking outside the box is really hard because we're in the box, but
Yes.
and we don't even see it. But when you talk with people from completely different cultures, from completely different parts of the world, that takes you outside the box. It throws in things you'd
Exactly.
never even think of.
Exactly. I mean, what I'm saying, globalization is fantastic, and then I got someone from another emerging market saying, "Wait a minute, this is the reason in my country that globalization is not working out for me." And then I would just go on regardless, thinking, "Isn't it fantastic for me and the people I hang around with every day?" You know, and now with technology moving as rapidly as it is, what's the point in taking a module like entrepreneurship in emerging markets, which is one of the choices of modules that you have on our course, if there is no one in your class from an emerging market? It's so if you want to know about why doing this course, that's a good example of why University of Liverpool Online offers people that ability to really have a global MBA. Lots of MBAs will call themselves a global MBA or an executive MBA, but we actually do have a global reach, 140 countries and executives all over the place. Our next start date is the 29th of June. For more information, just contact your enrollment advisor. There's a very easy application process. You put your motivation letter, you put in your work experience and your education, and your best foot forward, and we look to take it from there. You might not have been in study for a while. You might have been working for ages. That's absolutely fine. Or the opposite. So just give us a call, and we'll decide what's right and how you can really make the best of your application. You can see there that we've dropped a link in the chat box there for you to click and check more of that out today. So thank you very much for that. Lisa, thank you very, very much for your time today. We've had a bit of a whirlwind tour across the MBA program. What piece of advice would you give to someone who might, be at work and thinking, I know I need to do something, but I'm feeling a bit cautious about online study, and I don't know if it's the right move for me. What kind of advice would you give that person?
Don't do it alone. Talk to people. Talk to the advisors. Look online, but also talk to your friends. Talk to your family. Talk to your employer, because like I say, it is about networks, and it's about thinking about letting your family know that this is what you're going to do. Think about how you're going to engage their support. Thinking about your employer. Maybe they'll provide more help. It may not be financial, but maybe they'll let you have some time or a quiet room where you can study. So I would say the next step is you're obviously thinking about it yourself, but maybe reach out, start to talk to somebody else about your ideas.
Perfect. Thank you. Support is maybe the last thing you're thinking about when you're looking for a program, but once you're in a program, it's the first thing you're thinking about. So very, very good answer there, Lisa. Thank you very much for your time today, Lisa. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to catching up with you in a couple of months in Liverpool. So thank you.
Yeah, see you at graduation, Joseph.
See you at
Bye, everyone.
graduation. And bye. And thank you very much to our audience today. This has been a University of Liverpool online presentation. My name is Joe O'Brien. I'm your moderator for today. Thank you very much. We will see you in class and enjoy that. Thank you very much.